You talking to me? You talking to me?
That scene didn't just land, it exploded into film history. And here's the wild part, it wasn't even written in the script. That moment came out of pure instinct and it changed everything. But the real story behind Taxi Driver goes way deeper, and honestly way darker than most people realize. The making of this film had some seriously unsettling energy behind it. These are the hidden cinema secrets you probably missed in Taxi Driver, 1976. Number 1. The yellow metal coffin. The script for Taxi Driver was never meant to be some polished Hollywood product. It came from a much darker place, like a personal survival move for Paul Schrader. Back in the early 1970s, Schrader hit a serious mental and emotional breaking point while living in Los Angeles. He lost his job at the American Film Institute, his marriage fell apart, and after being rejected by a girlfriend, he ended up completely alone, barely speaking to anyone for weeks. Things spiraled fast. He got stuck in a rough cycle, drinking heavily, spending long hours in adult theaters, and driving around the city with no direction at all. During that time, he also became deeply fixated on firearms, keeping them close by his bed, which added to the tension he was living with every day. It was a chaotic and isolating period that started shaping the tone of what would become Taxi Driver. The real wake-up call came when he was hospitalized for a bleeding ulcer at just 26 years old. Lying there in the emergency room, it hit him. He felt like he had turned into a ghost in the city, surrounded by people but completely cut off from real connection. That's when the idea clicked. He saw the taxi as a yellow metal coffin drifting through the city's underbelly, carrying someone who felt invisible. After that moment, everything poured out fast. He wrote the entire script in less than 15 days, using the process as a way to process what he was going through and create distance from that dark headspace, turning real-life struggle into something unforgettable on screen. Number 2, the role no one wanted you until it was way too late. Before Robert De Niro became Travis Bickle, this role was slipping through people's hands left and right, and it almost changed the entire movie forever. At one point, Brian De Palma was set to direct, and his vision was completely different from what we know today. He even wanted Melanie Griffith to play Iris, but her mother, Tippi Hedren, stepped in and shut it down fast because she didn't feel right about the sensitive subject matter. Then everything flipped in just 2 weeks. The producers went to a private screening of Mean Streets and saw the raw, unpredictable energy Robert De Niro brought to the screen. That was it. They immediately fired De Palma and handed the project over to Martin Scorsese. Just like that, the whole direction of Taxi Driver changed, and De Niro started becoming the face of Travis Bickle as we know him today. But even then, nothing was locked in. This was still a low-budget film hanging by a thread, so Scorsese kept meeting other actors just in case. He even sat down with Dustin Hoffman about playing Travis Bickle, but Hoffman walked away from it later saying he thought Scorsese was crazy. Instead, he chose to work on Lenny. Years later, after Taxi Driver became legendary, Hoffman admitted he seriously regretted passing on the role, and he wasn't the only one. Burt Reynolds also turned it down and later called it a huge mistake, saying he missed out on something that defined an entire era of film. The studio even tossed around unexpected names like singer Neil Diamond, which could have taken the movie in a totally different direction. The casting drama didn't stop there either. Once Scorsese took over, he replaced Melanie Griffith with Linda Blair, known for The Exorcist, but she also backed out. It felt like nobody could lock this role in place. That is, until Jodie Foster stepped in and finally brought stability to the role of Iris. And what's wild is, she beat out a surprising list of future stars to get it, a story that gets even crazier later on. Number 3, the bargain of the century. By the time filming kicked off in the summer of 1975, Robert De Niro wasn't just rising, he was already at the top of the game. He had just won an Academy Award for The Godfather Part 2 and was getting offers close to $500,000 for major roles. But here's where it gets wild. He had already signed on to Taxi Driver years earlier for just $35,000. The producers, Michael and Julia Phillips, were seriously nervous. They thought De Niro might come back and demand a huge pay raise, or worse, walk away completely. And if that happened, though, Columbia Pictures could have easily shut the whole project down. This wasn't some safe studio film. It was risky, dark, and easy to cancel, but De Niro didn't budge at all. He stuck to the original deal without hesitation. No renegotiation, no drama. He was fully locked in because he believed this movie was going to last, that people would still be watching it 50 years later, and he didn't want to miss being part of that. And it wasn't just him taking a pay cut. The entire core team, including Martin Scorsese and Paul Schrader, earned a combined total of only $150,000. That's way less than what De Niro alone could have demanded at the time, which makes this whole thing feel even more unreal. Number 4, The Invisible Man of Manhattan. Even after winning an Oscar, Robert De Niro discovered something unsettling while preparing for Taxi Driver. He could disappear in plain sight. To fully step into Travis Bickle's world, he spent an entire month working brutal 15-hour shifts as a licensed New York City cab driver, soaking in the exhaustion and rhythm of the job firsthand. And what he found was honestly chilling. Driving real passengers all over the city day and night, De Niro realized that cab drivers were almost completely ignored, like they weren't even there. During that entire month, he was recognized just once, and the only person who noticed him was a struggling young actor who couldn't believe an Academy Award winner was behind the wheel of a cab. The moment turned awkward fast. The passenger actually asked him if things were so bad in Hollywood that he had to drive a taxi to get by. And De Niro didn't break character, he went along with it, admitting that the industry could be tough. That interaction stuck with him in a big way. It made something click. He saw Travis as someone people don't truly see, someone they talk in front of without holding back because they don't even register him as fully human. That idea hit deep and it shaped the character in a real way. That month of being overlooked gave De Niro a raw, real understanding of isolation, and he brought every bit of that energy straight into the film. Number 5, the role every rising star wanted. Locking in the character of Betsy turned into a full-blown Hollywood scramble, with nearly every major young actress in the game trying to land the part. Mary Steenburgen even auditioned and was actually Martin Scorsese's top pick, but she was still unknown at the time, with no film debut yet, so she got passed over just like that. The list of names keeps getting bigger. Sigourney Weaver was offered the role and turned it down, while future legends like Meryl Streep, Glenn Close, and Susan Sarandon were all either considered or brought in to audition. This wasn't just casting, it was a serious competition and everyone wanted in. Producer Julia Phillips even admitted they looked at every blonde in town and still had other preferences, including Farrah Fawcett at one point. But the studio had its own ideas and pushed things in a different direction. When they sent out a casting call for a Sybil Shepherd type, her agent Sue Mengers made a bold move and said, why not just hire Sybil Shepherd? And just like that, the conversation shifted. In the end, Sybil Shepherd landed the role, but not without controversy. Julia Phillips later claimed that Scorsese chose her partly because of her physical presence, saying it added to the character's appeal. Whether that claim is fully accurate or not, it definitely added another layer of tension to an already intense casting process. Number 6, the shadow of the streets. Jodie Foster was just 12 years old when she stepped into the role of Iris, and the subject matter she had to deal with was intense and far beyond what most kids her age would ever face. Because of that, the California Labor Board required her to go through psychological evaluations with a UCLA psychiatrist before filming even began, just to make sure everything was handled responsibly, but the preparation didn't stop there. The production arranged for her to observe and learn from a real person connected to that world, a New York City street worker named Garth. Garth was dealing with heroin addiction and had a very specific habit of dumping huge amounts of sugar onto her food to deal with cravings. That small but telling detail stuck with Foster. She brought it straight into the film. In that diner scene where Iris piles sugar onto toast already covered in jelly, a lot of viewers thought it showed innocence, but that wasn't the intention at all. It was meant to quietly hint at the harsh environment surrounding the character, adding a layer most people completely missed. And here's another wild detail. Garth Avery actually appears in the film for a brief moment as one of the street characters, blending real-life influence directly into the story. Landing the role wasn't easy either. Foster beat out over 250 other applicants, including future big names like Carrie Fisher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Kim Cattrall. Even Tatum O'Neal was offered the part but turned it down, saying it felt too small after already winning an Oscar. Funny enough, Foster had the chance to take O'Neal's role in The Bad News Bears, but instead she chose the darker road with Taxi Driver, and it changed everything. Number 7, The Stand-In Secret. Jodie Foster wasn't allowed to perform the more suggestive scenes in Taxi Driver. She was only 12 years old during production, and there were strict rules in place to protect her. The California Labor Board and the Board of Education kept a close watch on everything happening on set, making sure the young actress was handled appropriately given the heavy subject matter. So the filmmakers had to get creative. To work around those limits, they brought in Foster's older sister Connie to act as her body double. Connie was 19 at the time and had a similar height and build, which made the switch almost impossible to notice on screen. And here's the part most people never catch. In wider shots or moments that required more mature presentation, it was actually Connie dressed in Iris's outfits, stepping into the role seamlessly. The illusion worked so well that audiences had no idea. Foster later shared that having her sister there made the whole experience feel a lot more comfortable. Between takes, they could laugh about the situation together, which helped balance out the intensity of filming such a heavy story. Number 8. The search for a white pimp. The twisted connection between Sport and Iris hits hard, acting like a dark mirror to Travis's loneliness, showing a kind of closeness he can't even come close to understanding. And Harvey Keitel didn't take this role lightly at all. His preparation went deep, almost uncomfortably so. He spent weeks out on the streets of New York, studying real pimps and how they moved, how they talked, how they controlled situations. But he didn't stop there. He even flipped the perspective during role-play exercises, putting himself in the position of the worker just to understand the psychological grip and manipulation involved. That level of detail shows up in every second he's on screen. But here's where things get even more intense. In Paul Schrader's original script, Travis Bickle's motivations were written very differently, with the character targeting black men specifically. That version of the story pushed things into much more volatile territory, especially with multiple key characters originally written that way. Martin Scorsese stepped in and shut that direction down. He was seriously concerned about the impact. Ending a film like this with a white vigilante harming black characters and being treated like a hero could have caused major backlash and real-world consequences in the already tense climate of the 1970s, so the script was reworked and those elements were removed, shifting the focus away from that angle. That change led to a new challenge, finding the right version of Sport. Scorsese and Schrader even went out into Times Square searching for inspiration, trying to shape the character into something that still felt real and unsettling. Out of that process came one of the film's most haunting moments. The improvised dance scene between Sport and Iris stands out because it's one of the only times we step outside of Travis's point of view. Keitel brought a smooth, almost hypnotic energy to it, inspired by Barry White's voice and style, even helping shape the tone of the dialogue in that scene. And that moment hits with a purpose. As disturbing as Sport is, he gives Iris something Travis never can, a sense of connection, even if it's built on illusion. That contrast makes the story hit even harder, showing just how limited and cold Travis's view of the world really is. Number 9. The guards of the underworld. Filming Taxi Driver on the streets of New York in 1975 wasn't just difficult, it was straight up dangerous. The city was dealing with a financial crisis, and in many areas, police presence was barely there, leaving entire neighborhoods feeling abandoned and unpredictable. The production leaned into that chaos. They chose to shoot in rough areas like Hell's Kitchen and Columbus Avenue, mainly because they could use run-down condemned buildings as cheap sets, but that decision came with real risks. The crew constantly dealt with harassment from people in the area, including criminals and individuals struggling with addiction, making every shoot feel tense, so they made a move that sounds almost unreal. To stay safe, the production actually hired a local street gang to protect the set from other gangs nearby. Yeah, real criminals were acting as security while the film was being made. That wild setup created a strange but powerful energy. The danger wasn't fake, and you can feel it in the movie. That raw tension from the streets made its way onto the screen in a way no studio set could ever recreate. Number 10. The 20-minute panic. The overhead tracking shot after the final shootout, sliding down that blood-soaked hallway, turned into one of the riskiest moves in the whole production, and it almost fell apart right there. They weren't filming on a safe soundstage either. They were inside a real brownstone on 89th Street, and the crew had to bring in chainsaws just to cut through ceiling and floor beams so the camera could even move. That kind of structural damage pushed the building into a dangerous state, reportedly so unstable it looked like it could collapse at any moment, and accounts later say the location eventually gave way years after filming wrapped. The pressure was insane because strict child labor rules for 12-year-old Jodie Foster meant they only had a tiny 20-minute window to pull off the shot before she had to leave the set. Everything came down to timing, and the crew scrambled in intense conditions, managing to get the shot in just 2 takes before the deadline hit. Pure chaos on set. Scorsese later pointed out that the struggle behind this moment showed exactly how the film's ambition forced everyone to adapt under extreme pressure and unpredictable conditions. And that's the end of the story behind Taxi Driver, but honestly, the deeper you go, the crazier it gets. If you enjoyed these hidden details and behind the scenes secrets, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's obsessed with classic films and wild Hollywood stories. Drop a comment too and tell what part shocked you the most. There's always something people miss in this movie. And if you want more breakdowns like this, check out the channel $21, because we don't just watch films, we dig into what really happened behind them.